Are you ever? David Wallace is our guest today, former fixer of the Conservative Party, other political parties. David Wallace has got a podcast called The Fix. Good morning. My son's walking by with a muffin in his hand right now. It is the morning time. Nice to see you, David. How are you, brother?
I can't complain at all. It's a beautiful day. No snow on the ground. Can't
Yep.
complain. So
No. Well, that's it. It's funny. It's been like a record heat waves where we live in this part of the world, beautiful kind of greater Toronto area. And everybody's like, it's too hot. It's too hot. I'm so sweaty. And then like you get, let's fast forward or rewind. Take your pick. February. Everybody's like, it's too cold. Can't wait for the summer. Are we ever happy people, David? Ever?
never happy people. Give me the sunshine every day of the week.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too. Good to see you, dude. I haven't seen you in a while. I wanted to hop on today because, well, the world's going crazy. We got political interference galore. We got thieving of land. We've got. I mean, it's all happening. Everybody is full of shit. Every government, municipal, federal is on the take. Provincial is on the take, and you've been one of those guys that's led the charge because you've been on the inside for a long time. And real quick, just to recap, not it's your old career. You don't do it anymore, but you were a political fixer for a very long time, correct?
Yeah, I got into the political end of things about 25 years ago. Prior to that, it was mostly corporate and business in Eastern Europe and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
past 25 years dedicated strictly to politics.
What dedicating to politics? Doing what? Give me some samples of your work, just to kind of reintroduce people to my friend David Wallace.
Well, in 2018, I accepted the paper on removing Patrick Brown. That was one job. Then babysitting him and making sure he didn't get back into the race. Did that with a few associates of mine, a few that you may have interviewed on your very show.
Yes, I have.
Let me see. I helped out a few wacko religious cults until they wanted me to kidnap people. Those wacko religious cults happened to be connected to some very reputable and respected Miller Thompson lawyers who will not be named. It
Good.
might rhyme with Gerald Jabor.
I love how you do that, the rhyming game, and then you just give the name. I do that all the time. It's really funny. Okay, yeah, you're a fixer. Your job was to operate in the shadows. Your job was to connect people. Your job was to sewer political opponents. Your job was to change narratives, right? Am I kind of on the right track? Am I popularizing this
Absolutely.
properly? Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was also to head off public relations disaster, which Premier Porky Pig seems to be immersed in right now. Not smart.
No.
Naked corruption, though, has overtaken Ontario. And any subtlety or respect for the taxpayer is certainly evaporated.
Yeah. Well, let's dig in there because Doug Ford is in it. Someone you've done work for, done work with, someone you have observed in your personal life. He's the Premier of Ontario. Caught red-handed this week, handing out parcels of land to his mob construction buddies. Is that a pretty accurate allegation? Am I kind of encapsulating that right? How would you put what happened to Doug Ford in the corruptly conservative party of Ontario this week?
Well, I think your words right there could pretty much serve as an indictment, written indictment. It's simplistic in a lot of matters, but ways, but it's on point. In 2018, Doug Ford on video explained his plan for the greenbelt in a room full of the very developers who miraculously ended up with the contracts to develop the greenbelts. We have a situation now where the premier is defending this naked theft by claiming that he's Santa Claus and he and his wonderful developer friends are only there to develop housing and make sure Ontarians, have a place to live. Although I don't know many Ontarians these days who have a few $1,000,000 change rattling around in their pockets to be able to afford this. It's mob rule in Ontario, and Doug is he's the straw man, and he's filling his pockets, and we have a situation that has gotten out of control. Mm-hmm. Law enforcement, judiciary, it's all become one big cesspool. And the voters, if they weren't aware of that, they should be very aware of that today. This isn't a partisan issue. It's an Ontario issue. It's a Canadian issue.
Yeah.
It's the 99% that is currently struggling to breathe with the 1%'s boot across our throat. That 1% isn't New World Order, Bill Gates, microchip, bad vaccine bullshit. These are common thieves. That's what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing about some worldwide conspiracy. We're dealing with dime store cowboys who have been given the keys to the kingdom. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, David Wallace is our guest. Podcast called The Fix, former fixer for politicians and corporate knobs, the elite that like to keep you uninformed. He's trying to inform us now. You've been on a heater, I don't know, for the past couple of years, and heavy on Twitter. You've called Doug Ford a fat pig. You've everybody feeding at the trough. You know this guy. You know these people involved. So help me understand the criminality that you're alleging here, and who and how this works, because you've intimated that Doug Ford is a patsy, sort of, in this, a straw man in this, sort of. And I want to play that clip from 2018 before we go any further, because if you read the AG's report that said Doug Ford and his friends absolutely gifted $8.3 billion worth of developable land, getting rid of all kinds of ecological habitats with taxpayer money, and gifted it to 15 or so, maybe 20 of his closest donors, construction funds, all of which somehow magically ended up shoving envelopes of money into his daughter's stag and doe house at his backyard barbecue. A litany of examples of these guys going to his daughter's wedding, and then says, hey, listen, I've got nothing to do with this process, which I found interesting, but let's just telegraph this. This is in 2018. This is the video that you're talking about. This is Doug Ford getting angry at backroom deals where people of the province get shafted by politicians, which is exactly what the Auditor General report says. Let's watch this together.
These fat cats that are making millions of dollars, and I'm not talking about the people making $100,000. I'm talking about all these guys making their deals behind closed doors and then keeping it a secret, not telling the taxpayers. That's unacceptable. We have to make sure that we have some transparency down here.
There you go. We got to make sure we got some transparency down there. That's the clip you're talking about. And then this is him yesterday getting challenged on the idea that he did exactly that. And he's like, well, whatever, bumblefuck, whatever.
The Canadian story, that's the Ontarian story. I don't know if you don't have an opportunity to meet the people I do, and especially in my community in North Rexdale, you should come by and talk to these people. These people will tell you stories how they came with nothing. Zero. And some are extremely successful business people. Those same people are employing, 10 people, 20 people, 50 and 100 people. But they started with absolutely nothing, and I've heard this story over and over and over again. That's what the Ontario dream is. And the majority of the people that are coming here, a lot, not all, have existing family members here. The word is out in the world. Come to Ontario. An economic powerhouse in North America. You're going to have great education. You're going to have great health care. We're going to have an opportunity to grow and own a home and start a business and start a family. That's the word around the world. We live in the most multicultural city and province anywhere in the world. People love Ontario.
Yeah, that's nice. People love Ontario, but rich people and developers really love Ontario. How does that relationship work, David? How does the relationship between these construction, and you know these people, so you better start telling me some details. But how does the relationship between Doug Ford or the Conservative Party of Ontario and these developers work?
Well, let me give you the genesis of Doug Ford's reign. In late 2017, I arranged for a visit to Moscow and St. Petersburg, Russia. Kirill Kalaman, the former press secretary of the Russian Federation, the embassy in Ottawa, who was removed for espionage activity, arranged for myself to go. While I was there, I was given a package. That package was information on a Patrick Brown, who I didn't know from Adam. I mean, I knew him from the news. That's it. The word was that Patrick had to be removed. He and his friends, who were aspiring businessmen, we'll call them, with some connections in Niagara, had their eyes on some casino parcels for all of Ontario once Patrick Brown, excuse me, not the leadership, but the Ontario premiership, which he was on track to do. His criminal friends, unfortunately for him, intersected with my clients. Those clients are the Eastern European businessmen who had developed some wonderful relationships. And if you're looking for a little bit more background on that, I suggest that you read a few press progress articles that were released last year about how back channels were established into the premier's office with the Russian Federation. These gentlemen teamed up with some upstanding developers in the GTA, and that is how Doug Ford was picked. Doug Ford was the perfect candidate. It was a turf war between three warring factions, three criminal families, so to speak. Patrick Brown's backers, Carolyn Mulrooney's backers, which included Great Canadian Gaming, which was owned by Sanjay Sen and her husband, which at the time was wholly owned by another corporation called Burgundy Access Management, which was Brian Mulrooney, 83% control, which is another reason why Brian never liked that. But it was really, there's no good, simply the public's purse. That's where we were at. Those are some details. And that's how we got here today.
Okay. So, you've got geographic, espionage here. You're talking about Russians who became friendly with some developer families over here. Those connections lead to possibly former prime ministers who may or may not own, a large percentage of a gaming company. And they're like, Patrick Brown is in bed with another company that has another casino owner and operator in mind for a casino. We want that casino because what better place to, have money go through the turnstiles in a casino or a conference center, right? Like, we all know that.
What good is dirty cash if you can't fucking launder it, right?
That's a good point. You got to be able to figure it out. So then that leads to someone saying, get Patrick Brown out. Konstantin Kalimnik, is that the gentleman you're talking about? Get Patrick Brown out, because we have developers and we have interests in casino world that need to be serviced, and Doug Ford will do anything for us. Is that what you're saying? Doug Ford was
Absolutely.
the better candidate who would open up more doors and was more corruptible, maybe? Is that what you're saying?
They wanted an absolute puppet. People like Patrick Brown or Kathleen Wynne, these are professional politicians with savvy and experience, and they have their own ideas, and they're very hard to keep on a leash, especially if they have their own scams going on the side. I'm not saying Kathleen Wynne or I'm not anticipating what Patrick may have done once he got in. I'm just simply stating the obvious. Doug Ford was perfect. Doug was the low information candidate. He doesn't want to know, and he doesn't care. He does what he's told. He goes where he's told to go, and he sticks to the script. It's perfect. A useful idiot.
Is there, you know what? He plays the role well.
He does. He was born for it.
Yeah, he's born to be a useful idiot. Because he walks around and he acts like a bumblefuck, and I find it impossible that a guy like that could be some kind of criminal mastermind. Which is why what you're saying, if true, makes a ton of sense. That he is literally the puppet, and he's got special interests and basically money and conservatism with his hand up his ass, right? But the wheels are coming off with what we're seeing with the greenbelt, and the criminality is coming out again and again and again, or alleged criminality is coming out again and again and again. What is Doug Ford? Have you surveilled him? Have you worked with him? And why is Doug Ford so tight with the OPP? Because this is getting weird. Like the whole, we're not going to investigate Doug Ford when it's clear criminality. If indeed he did give developers a leg up, and if he did indeed change laws and hustled environmental bullshit through so that he could enrich his friends, and he could be building these $4 million homes for these incredibly rich immigrants who are coming from somewhere, by the way. I don't know, like you get 80,000 homes they want to build, and like most of them are between $2 and $4 million. So I don't know where they're coming from. We all know what this is. It's an enrichment process, right? That's what this is for his relationships. So what do you know about Doug Ford and how he became this? Like, not that he was picked, because we get that. But like, I've heard he used to be an OPP informant. I've heard that he's been protected by the OPP. I've heard that Ron Taverner is his dad's fixer. I mean, I've heard a million stories, but what do you know? What have you seen?
Well, from what I've seen and the people I've dealt with, Taverner is his Krishna, he's his roof, as you would say in Russia, his protection. He was a fixer for his old man. You have to keep in mind, a company like Deco Labels, Toronto, Chicago, do the connect the dots, so to speak. These are organized people behind these businesses. Doug Ford was perfect. At city council, he was known as someone who would sell access to his brother. He was known as an individual who would fix problems for other councilors by calling on his street contacts or his OPP contacts. Just yesterday in the morning, if you recall last year, you played a tape on your show, a Bulgarian named Michael Yurkovich, who wanted me to hack off body parts of Nathan Jacobson, bring to him by lunchtime. During the course of that, the OPP became involved. A friendly gentleman who I know, he gave me a call yesterday and gave me a friendly heads up, telling me that my name had been added to the board, so to speak, and that they were very anxious to dissuade me from continuing my campaign of pointing out the obvious on Twitter, I guess simply because people might give it some credibility. I'm not going to back off. I don't give a shit anymore. If my goal was to stuff my pockets with money and live a stress-free life, well, then I would have continued ripping off Canadians. But that's no longer something that I can do. People like Doug Ford are dangerous because they have no moral compass. And stealing the greenbelt, stealing your children's future, things like healthcare, all of our institutions have become infested with organized crime, but organized crime not just on a street level, but on a corporate level, because that's what this is. It's corporate redistribution of wealth, of theft. And Doug, who has been in the underworld his entire life, from being an alleged drug dealer, through working his way up through city politics, first as a business owner, and then after he ineptly almost put his business out of business once he attained political office, that business has miraculously rallied and is experiencing record profits. Doug Ford is a creature of our current system, a system where every party of every stripe. See, this isn't a conservative issue. This is not a, Doug Ford's not a conservative, by the way. He paints himself in the conservative colors, but Doug Ford is not conservative. Ford's about as conservative as Trump is Republican. It's a handy label that was used to bamboozle the public, for the people. The only people Doug Ford is for the ones who live in his own house.
Yeah, and you can see that, right? You can see how that works because the quid pro quo is thick with this one. Like there was a great little LinkedIn post the other day where it's like, oh, look, one of Doug Ford's daughters who has zero training in this department is the head of a clinic, like a healthcare clinic. One of the healthcare clinics that is allowed to exist privately because Doug Ford has opened up our healthcare and given contracts to his friends. So his friends give his contracts to his son. But how does this quid pro quo work for him? If he's the village idiot that is just being worked like a puppet, what is he being promised after he leaves office?
From what I've heard, Doug Ford has stuffed away $420 million since he has taken office. I don't know where he's put it, but the people who told me this are very reliable sources. When I say by reliable, they're criminals, which means they have no reason not to tell me the truth. They're in fact quite pissed off that Doug has all the money.
420 million bucks, like in kickbacks.
That's the word I heard.
Huh. Alleged.
Of course. I really doubt he's going to give us a complete and utter audit of his finances.
You think he's going to give us the accounting on all that money? You think he's going to tell us where it is? Okay, guys, you got me. Because, dude, that's the thing that I find most amazing about this government is that he's been able to kind of like act like a yokel, like he's just here for it. And a lot of people still believe it, but every action stands to the opposite. Like, do you remember last year when those nurses were protesting and his security guards kicked the shit out of them? And then he goes on inside of the debate and he's like, I love nurses. I'm like, dude, you just kicked the shit out of 10 of them outside your protest and outside your debate. So stands in contrast the video of him saying we're never going to build on the greenbelt. That's ridiculous. He built on the greenbelt. We're offering transparency. Does the complete opposite. No transparency. They fought legally to have that report that the AG put out saying, hey, by the way, you might want to look into the criminality and the gifting of some of the most important parcels of agriculture to developers that are directly tied to Doug, that go to his weddings and stag parties and fill boxes with money. And they're like,
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll look into it. Maybe. We don't know if we're going to look into it. Where does the OPP come in?
The OPP, Mr. Tabner, as we allegedly, has been their fixer for years. The OPP, and I'm not going to paint every street officer or men and women who do the day-to-day work as criminals. Look, in that department, just like in every walk of life, you have decent, hardworking people who put their lives on the line. They go out and they serve their community, and they serve it very well. But the brass that has been put in place, largely appointees of Doug Ford, have clearly defined their loyalty. And these people are concerned with patronage, with political appointments, with financial gain. They don't care about their officers. They use a lot of these officers as stormtroopers. Not that there's not pro-convoy officers on board, his own son-in-laws, from what I've heard, who will be very, very happy to crack heads like a good stormtrooper, good brown shirt. But the OPP, their reputation has been sullied. And it's been sullied because of systemic corruption on their leadership level. Leadership which was groomed and appointed and friends of Doug Ford. Something has to change. When our judiciary, our policing, and our leadership is corrupt, the people need to find a mechanism to remove it. It's a cancer. You need to cut it out. One way or the other.
Yeah, but you know, like we see the same thing in American politics, right? We see, you know, stacking of the courts, right, in the United States. And you see Trudeau doing the same thing in the Senate, stacking the Senate with people that share his ideology. Was that an expressed goal? And if Doug Ford is the village idiot you say he is, who's behind appointments for people in places like the OPP? Remember, he tried to get Ron Taverner, who's like the greasiest fucking guy on the planet, to be the head of the OPP, and like the rest of the free world's like, dude, you can't do that. The guy's insane, and like that is just a huge conflict of interest. He used to work for your dad, and he's like, yeah, okay, I totally get it. But like, who's pushing all the buttons? Who's stacking boards? Who's doing that stuff on his behalf if he's legitimately the dumbest fuck we all know he is?
Well, you look at the people he had surrounded himself with, such as Dean French, such as Frank Cleese. People of that nature were certainly the architects for the first several years of his political career. Exactly who he has
wasn't Frank Cleese the guy who created that back channel to Russia? Is that correct?
Yeah, I reached out to William Moore in Barrie, Ontario, and William, who had a relationship with Frank, put me in touch with him. And then I put those boys in touch with the ambassador, Darchev, or former ambassador Darchev in Ottawa. And we moved from there. I made some good money on that, I won't lie.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
It's all gone now, sorry, but...
Dude, it wasn't my money. Now that it's all gone, your conscience can be clear. I kind of want to know what you spend it on, but I'm not going to ask because it doesn't matter. But what is this now? Like, you know, if we're not, are we going to see? Do you have conversations with anybody in your world who's like, yeah, I mean, you know, legally something's got to happen here. Like someone's going to investigate this guy because it's clear criminality. And there's a couple things you can't do to a democratic people, right? In a country like this, where we're like, okay, we get the democracy. We know how this place works. We know we can't do certain things. We know we can't steal. We know we should be transparent. We know we should tell the truth. We know we shouldn't lie. And then you're watching the guy who is in charge of the province, who's in charge of our tax purse strings, who's in charge of the police services boards, who's in charge, lie and do all those things. So, like, is there a movement in any circle to say, hey, let's uncover some of this and figure out whether or not what Doug Ford and his friends and cronies are doing are illegal? or is it so deep into some of these families, these construction families that we're talking about? Are they so important to the economy in this country that it'll just get washed?
It'll get washed for sure, Will. And I wouldn't say, they say it's important for our economy. Let's face facts. In terms of healthcare, that's already well underway. In fact, it's well on the track to completion. And it won't happen in stages, Ontario. What will happen is one day you'll be able to go in and receive emergency care, and the next day you will be refused entry. These families, construction families, legitimate businessmen that we're talking about, you ever notice the plaques in every one of these hospitals? They own these hospitals. They are making public health care tank on purpose. They're doing so we can go to a private United States model where everything is for profit. And if you don't have any money, you're shit out of luck. How is that good for the country's economy? You see, we're saying we have to protect our economy. We have to protect our economic engine, and these people are vital to it. I would venture to say that these massive developers who are developing properties which only the 1% in this society can afford, I say those same people who are making healthcare, again, available only to that top percentage point, I'd say that would be a net gain to prosecute them all. Because once they're out of the way, public healthcare and public housing, affordable housing, can actually be built with a government by the people for the people. You're right. All levels of government, all political stripes create their own little entrenched mafias, their own little kingdoms, selling their beliefs and viewpoints. And when it is time, and I don't care which political party you care for, when it is time to step aside for new ideas, because any government after a decade in office is a tired government. We need true representation from the people, and the people don't always speak through one political party's platform. It's time to forget about parties and start electing people who care about their communities. That's the only way out. And if that's not people aren't willing to do that, we're going to end up living in a mafia empire where you're on the bottom.
Don't we already live in there? Aren't we there? I mean, we've got, let's just call a fucking spade, right? And I'll just say this so that it's nice and clear and clean. The construction mob that runs this province of Ontario, right? And the special interests that they line up with, or the business interests that they line up. They might be in Russia, they might be in Serbia, they might be in the Philippines. Doesn't matter where they are. But they got international business. So this has literally been. Is it a money laundering service for other countries? Is it a little bit of that? Is like what are we doing here? Explain how that works.
We're extracting wealth and resources. We're extracting that wealth and resources, and it's being redistributed. And like you said, it's international. These people are always looking for new legitimate ways to bring their money either in or out of the country in legitimate ventures, because a lot of the old standbys have disappeared. And the mafia, as you would call it, has now evolved into the corporate. That's what I like to call it. It's all the same arm. Your alleged criminals or respectable gentlemen, diasporas, they're multinational mafia empires. That's all they are. And we allow them to exist. We give them the oxygen to exist because no one has the political will to do anything about it. And they don't have the political will because 99.9% of our politicians are compromised. It's a fact.
Yeah, all of them. Doesn't matter what color either, right? Could be orange, could be blue.
It's all about green. That's all it really comes down to at the end. Green.
Well, and you're reminded of it like the SNC Lavalin thing. Some people can call that a nothing burger, but it's a pretty big burger, right? When you're allowing a multinational company to go overseas and bribe people for business, and you can say, well, it's important to the national interest in the economy that we don't, sue our SNC Lavalin. That was a liberal government. Then we see all the shit with the conservatives hiding in plain sight. I mean, we can look at the land grab and the cash grab and these families that were enriched by it to the tune of $8.3 billion billion, according to Bonnie Lysyk. So on the tail end of that, right, we see people like Mike Harris, who opens up long-term care. His big parachute is he's on like 15 different LTC boards and gets a big stipend every month from all these boards because he's like, hey guys, I'm going to help you out. You're going to help me out on the back end. And listen, we're just talking about Doug Ford as it pertains to what we're dealing with now. But this does not operate in a vacuum, dude. You know that, right? Like every political party serves the best interests of their commerce or their business relationships always.
Every single
always.
One. Oh.
So, and that's the thing. What's that?
It's every single one. Every single one. I mean, we look, and here's the problem. Until people get out of the blue versus red versus yellow camp and believe that their political leaders, their opposing party, are lily white and can do no wrong, you cannot speak about the sins and the horrors of Doug Ford or Pierre Boulevard or Stephen Harper unless you are willing to soberly examine the real theft and illegalities that go on with the liberal government, the NDP governments. All governments are inherently corrupt. They are corrupt because they are unwieldy. They have centralization of power, which is delegated to loyal chieftains who all cut their own deals. It's the human condition. And unless real safeguards with real teeth, meaning mandatory audits by an independent board of everyone's finances, bank accounts, investments, holding people accountable on real-time basis. And when somebody has the hint of corruption around them, they are removed. That is the only way to do it. But people don't have that kind of political will. They are too lazy to safeguard their own democracy, which leads to situations where people like me can come in and rip them off.
So tell me something then. David Wallace, former fixer, host of The Fix, author of the Klondike Papers. Tell me something. When we talk, you and I sit here and talk about, you know, how filthy the business and the body politic is, not just in this country, but around the world, right? Ideologies line up with each other. Everybody gets involved. They fight each other. What is it going to take for us to talk about character? What is it going to take for us to talk about real values as opposed to supporting the ideology? Because all I see here now is a culture war that our political systems want us to fight when really we're fighting them. Like there shouldn't be an individual in this province of Ontario. There should not be one individual, regardless of your ideology, who looks at what we're talking about when it comes to the cash grab, the land grab, when it comes to the mob and construction mob, like literally stealing land and destroying the ecology in this country so they could make billions in construction fees and they could create generational wealth again on top of generational wealth. But at what point and when are we going to operate according, like, are they going to operate legally according to the same rules 99.9% of us have to operate under? Because there are days where I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't speed. You know what I mean? Oh, I don't want to take it. I want to be a law-abiding citizen. And it's like, yeah, that's cool for you guys. And what's good for you might not be good for me. And we see it every day. Will this ever end? And how does it end?
The only way to end this, you brought it up yourself, it's 99%. We are the 99%. And people need to stop cheerleading simply because they're heroes, they're leaders. Give them, hey, we don't like gay people. Yay! They don't like gay people. We don't like gay people because we're afraid of them. So we're going to support this party. We don't care that they're fucking robbing us, that they're telling us non-renewable energy is the way to go, and none of our fucking kids will be able to go outside and breathe in the future. We don't give a shit about that. What we do give a shit about is they're homophobic, we're homophobic and afraid, so we're vote for them. We don't care that they're clipping us. And then on the other side, you say, well, you know what? Our government, our prime minister supports gay rights, trans rights. He wants to hold everybody's hand and make everybody feel good. So we're going to completely dismiss the fraud and corruption which seems to break in the newspaper. And these are provable stories every other month. We need to forget about these political parties' messaging and look at them for what they are, fucking criminals. We live in a world where we can all coexist with our own beliefs. It's quite doable. It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. If it's not in your face, it doesn't matter. All social situations are inflamed. They're inflamed by both sides and the media. They all work together to continue this business, which is an international crime ring. And you motherfuckers, you and me, who believe in this puppet show, we are barking seals at the bread and circus, all the while they are turning our pockets out. It's time for the 99% of humanity to take control of their lives and throw these people out of office, regardless of what party they're from. It's the 1%, and that 1% is of the political parties and the media, and they all have a symbiotic relationship. It's an inbred relationship where our media put our hand out to take money from our governments, and in turn, they do the exact spin that the government and the opposition wants. Why? Because they are bottom feeders. They have not figured out how to monetize in this world properly. Instead of moving on and evolving, they have instead clung to the carcass of the dying old legacy media and live on the handouts. We need to hold our media accountable. Instead of going after Doug Ford with both barrels and leaving the media out of it, ask them why they're not asking the tough questions. Dig into their backgrounds, your Goldsteins, your Lilies. Find out exactly who they're dining with, who they're seeing. I mean, look, you don't think these politicians foster very tight relationship with these media whores? Take a look in the Klondike papers. You'll see Doug Ford having messages back and forth with me about Robert Cribb at the Toronto Star, wanting to know his every move and what stories he was about to print. These guys need the cooperation of the media. Without a silent and complicit media, their crimes are not possible. We need to hold the media accountable first. Then these people who are paid to be stewards of the public interest need to go after these bastards. That's what we need to do. And until we have the will to do it, it'll never happen.
Yeah, fucking great point. Nice monologue too. It's like you're 100% right. Until you're ready to exercise your right to vote to make a change, until you're ready to get off your apathetic ass and go and make a decision for character as opposed to color, we're going to be in this mess, right? Like it's just never going to end, and we've seen it time and time again at every level of government. What do you know about Doug Ford's relationships? What do you know about what he's doing in his private life? Because there's a name I keep hearing that comes up, and she operates this in this area named King of Surma. She operates and is I believe her constituency is where this beautiful new spa is going to go, where the government of Ontario has appropriated the land and given it to a Swedish company or something like that, and they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. What do I keep hearing about King of Surma and Doug Ford? They're just friends, right?
Sure, it's an open secret. It's not like our media doesn't know about this rumored relationship, but they are complicit. They are complicit by not reporting, by not. You can say, "Oh, what goes on in somebody's private life, their bedroom, is nobody's business," but it is, because it goes to character. You see, if somebody who will cheat on his wife and deny it, well, that means that they have no character and they are not fit to lead. I know it seems like putting people on a pedestal, but that's what you're supposed to be on. If you seek to lead the people, you need to be beyond reproach. And if you can't meet those marks, then don't run for office. Why is it that the most skilled people we have, the most skilled, the most knowledgeable, have absolutely zero interest in going into politics, and we end up with half-cooked abortions like Doug Ford? I'll tell you why. Because no decent person wants to face the corruption and the intense, entrenched filth and graft that they would have to wade through to get anything done. Graft not only with any party they would run against, but their own party members. It has become a circus of excess, of gorging oneself on the public trough. We need to throw these people out. The most expedient way to do it right now is to start picketing your MPPs, your MPs. Go to these media headquarters, Rogers, Bell, and picket the hell out of them. Call them to account. and say, where the fuck were you when Doug Ford stole billions of dollars of our future and killed our grandparents in long-term care homes that the fucking army had to come in and clean up? You're a murderer, Doug Ford. You are a criminal, and you are at large from justice. And I don't care who's protecting you, the OPP, the Attorney General. What, are you going to make Carolyn Mulrooney the fucking AG again? If you put toys on the floor, she'd sit down and play with them. Are people really going to stand for this bullshit? It's time to stand up, hold your media accountable, because they're the fucking watchdogs that need to be doing their job. Do your job.
Yeah, they won't, David.
No, they won't.
They won't. And do you know why they won't? Do you know why Edward Rogers won't report on this? Do you know why Mirko Bibic won't and Bell won't report on this? Do you know why? Yeah, because they're friends with him and they want the same thing he does.
Goddamn right.
Yeah.
Goddamn right. You want to change things? Take your Rogers phone, okay, and call them up and say, I don't want my do it to all of them. Maybe that might open up competition from the CRTC to bring in new carriers. How come I can go to the United States or any other country I can think of and I have choice? Choice, consumer choice. We don't hear. And we don't hear, not for Canadian protection, not to foster the growth of Canadian corporations. We don't have protection here because it's a monopoly that is protected and curated by our very politicians. Why? Why? Is that in the public interest? I don't care what's in Bell and Rogers' interest. Fuck that. Is it in the public's interest? That's what the public needs to ask. If it's not in the public interest, it's in nobody's interest except for thieves. Throw them out.
Yeah, and those thieves are gatekeepers of information, and that information that you don't get is the stuff that we're talking about today. And it's gonna come out. It's seeping out of the toothpaste tube, isn't it? The truth is coming out because the right people have to squeeze on the right area of the toothpaste, and that's what everybody has to do. And I'm calling on everybody to do it. David Wallace has spent a lifetime doing the opposite. He's spending the tail end of his career informing people. This is wrong. It is all corrupt. This is racketeering. And it's not just Doug Ford and the government of Ontario. It's every government. And you and I have the ability to actually do something about it by making an informed decision through a reasonable process of saying, hey, listen, I'm going to vote for someone with character today. You know, I'm going to take an interest in values today. I'm going to take an interest in virtues today. I'm not going to vote for color today. I'm not going to vote for my ideology. I'm not going to vote for that guy because he hates Barbie too. I'm going to vote for somebody who actually their words match their works, and those works align with me because that's in the public interest, and I am the public, as you pointed out. And all you have to look at in any of these situations, and I always say, who benefits and who loses, right? Who benefits with the criminality that we're talking about? Non-immigrants who aren't here yet, right, with $4.5 to $5 million to plunk down on a luxury home in the greenbelt in Ontario. Who benefits? Doug Ford and the developers benefit. Who drove the policy to make that happen? Doug Ford and the developers drove that policy to make it happen. Homeowners associations drove that policy. Who's on the homeowners association in Ontario? Sons, cousins, nephews, uncles of these developers and people appointed by Doug Ford and his cronies. It is unbelievable.
Great big criminal circle jerk.
Right? That's all it is. It's like, how can we put our guy in part of this process so there's no slowing down the money train when it comes back to us? And it's the same everywhere, David. It's the same. And the more I see you rage about it, the more people I talk to about it, the more I get into it with Adler, the more I'm like, holy shit, was I this dumb for a long period of time? Like, did I just not notice this stuff? Because it's been going on for a long time and it's fucking everywhere. And it's the one thing every single person in every ideology that's been duking it out online can get behind, which is like, hey, same rules for you as for us, dickheads, right? Same rules.
Absolutely. That's all people need, the same rules. You know, I think there should be a new political party and its color should be black and fucking white. Right and wrong. 99%. There's 99% of humanity, if you boil it right down, they want to have a place where their kids can go to school, where people don't attack them for their personal choices, and where they can own a home and raise a family. Whichever composition that family may entail, 2 moms, 2 dads, doesn't matter. People want to raise their families in peace, and in a place they can afford to live, in a community where they can grow. That's it. That's the message. It's all you need. And people, unfortunately, are so ideologically wrapped up because of the hatred and the flames that are being fanned. And the more we hate each other, the more we're divided, the easier it is for these fucking professional thieves to come in and steal. And that's what they're doing. Things will never be better. Equality will never be there. There will be no equity. There will be no community building as long as we follow the same political dynamic that we are in today. It is impossible. It is an adversarial system based on it from its foundation up. It needs to fall, all of it.
Yeah, David Wallace is our guest. David Wallace, you can get at pick 1960. What is it? Pick 1986 on Twitter. Did I get that right?
At Pick 61989.
At Pick61989. You can get him on Twitter. Author of the Klondike Papers. Go and sub and download his podcast called The Fix. You can go and do it. 25 years as a political fixer. He knows where the bodies are buried. I'm going to have you back on this week. I want to get to the bottom of a couple of other things. But thank you very much for taking a little bit of time to kind of shed some light on what you know to be true and what you've experienced. Always good to talk to you, David. I know it's an early start to the week, but by God, you look like a mature male model. You look so good. It's just happy to have two good-looking guys on a show at the same time. The world might explode.
Well, you know what? I like to leave my glasses off because I don't see all the lines and wrinkles, but thank you.
Buddy, good to see you. I'll talk to you soon.
Tally ho.
All right, man. David Wallace, former political fixer, host of a podcast called The Fix, where he walks people through things he's fixed, things he's done. Man, you know, it's all the stuff we knew, right? Like you knew about the criminality in politics. You knew about collusion in politics, media, legal, political. Those three things work together to absolutely destroy your confidence in this country and its institutions. Congratulations, guys. You did it. Great work. Wild. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Appreciate you being a part of the podcast. As always, brought to you by friends at Cantork. If you're looking for industrial torque tools, torque wrenches that nobody else can make, Cantork is your group. Colin Livingston's my guy. Give him a call today. Any heavy machinery industry, doesn't matter what it is, nuclear, railroad, metal, he's your guy. It's a loosening and fastening solution. Torque wrenches. Didn't know a whole lot about him until I started hanging out with Colin Livingston, one of the greatest guys on the planet. Go to cantork.com today for more information. Also, don't forget, we're brought to you by Gitch. That's right. Luxury underwear with the pouch in the front, only available at edsfineimports.com or go to Amazon. But when you go to Ed's Fine Imports, they'll give you a free pair with the promo code GITCH3. That's because you're my friend. Let's all be friends and get some Gitch together. GITCH3. That is your promo code. Gitch luxury underwear, breathable, made for every level of performance, super soft, moisture wicking fabric. Go to Ed's Fine Imports. GITCH3 is your promo code. Tell them I sent you. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you later on in the week. Lachlan Cross will be back. We'll get to our regularly scheduled program. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. Oh, I gotta hang on. I gotta put the intro in. There we go.